Welcome back, Rachel Reimer. Thank you so much for coming back for a second interview. I'm having a ball talking to you, and I hope you are too.
I am too, Jim. This is one of my favorite interviews that I've ever done. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Oh, awesome. I'm hoping that there are going to be many more. We'll track you as you go along in your career here and get more experiences to talk about. But at any rate, I wanted to talk about when you were still working with your mentor and you were still working on your physical symptoms with her, but you were getting some progress and that sort of thing. And it seems like, from talking with you, it seems like that you were getting into the way she did her work. You were getting a handle on it from the work that you were doing. Could you tell about that a little bit?
Yes. So when I started working at her clinic in 2014, I learned a lot on the intellectual end of when someone has this disease or condition. These are normally the lab markers to look out for.
Okay.
And at the end of the session or the end of the appointment, when she would be meeting with someone, she and I would just do this little huddle and go,
Okay.
"Hey, do you remember this person?" "Yeah, we just got done seeing them. What do you mean, do I remember them?" She's like, "No, do you remember the way that their body looked? Do you remember their facial expression? Do you remember this? Do you remember them saying this about their case history? Do you remember how this is the common theme that anytime I ask them about something, it comes back to this? When this person has this disease or condition, this is normally what it's related to. Watch out for that. Open your eyes. Don't just take anything that someone says for face value. Investigate it, look into it further."
What a wonderful teaching, because it was hands on. You're immersed in the situation. Your mind had just done that thought process. And then she was helping you to say, don't be tricked by that. Go here instead of there. That's what a wonderful training. What a patient and generous soul she is.
Yes. And one thing that the person that trained her mentioned to her, and I still haven't forgotten this, and this is something that I really value, is that 90% of what's going on with someone can likely be solved in a basic anatomy and physiology textbook, or it's in their case history and you missed it. So I
Okay.
don't anticipate that everyone is in the 10%. I don't think everyone is a unicorn. Very similar to, I think, what they teach in medical schools. Like, most people don't have these crazy diseases and conditions. It's probably something way more common. And I think
Yes.
that's true. And it's anytime that someone comes to me and they're checking off all the logical, intellectual boxes, I immediately go, there's something in their case history here. And to me, the case history is the emotional stressor. And likely they're aware of it and they thought that they were over it, or they didn't know it was bothering them. Like, they thought it bothered them at a 1 and it's really bothering them at a 9. So it's just trying to track down what that is.
That is like a detective work, right? And
Yeah.
when you were said that you were working with your mentor there, did you sit in then with the clients and did you give evaluations, or did you speak to the clients, or did you just observe?
I observed about 99% of the time. I mainly just sat in there and took notes for her.
Okay.
And then I would also observe everything that's going on. So I'm learning.
Right.
I very rarely interacted with people.
Okay. And at that point in time, you were still working on your own health.
Yeah, I was still physically not doing well. I worked part-time with her and I was also in school part-time as well. So I was already overburdened with that. It
Right.
was just more of just taking the bits and pieces that you can in small chunks, because you're not going to be able to do like a full load all at once.
I'll tell you, I give you a lot of credit for being a tough individual to say, I'm going to just keep chipping away at it. I'm going to move forward. I think you had mentioned that you're stubborn. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate. I feel very divinely guided to do this
Yeah.
work. And
Yes.
anytime that there's an obstacle in my way, I'm just going to figure it out, because I cannot die without finishing this. Whatever this is, I feel really strongly that I
Yeah.
need to finish it
I'm
no matter
supposed to
what.
do it. I'm supposed to go there, and I will.
Yep.
Oh, that's so neat. And now at some point in time, you did stop working with your mentor and go off on your own. Could you tell about that, please?
Yeah. So I decided that, you know what, I think I'm healthy enough in mind, as in like my brain is clear enough, and logically I feel like I have a lot of information under my belt at this point, and I am spiritually comfortable enough with my relationship with God that I feel like I could really start to help some people individually on my own. So that's when I opened up my business, Ray of Hope, and I slowly started to work with individuals and just, I didn't work with like stage 4, like huge health issues kind of thing. It was more of minor aches and pains to get started. And then over time, a majority of my practice has turned into chronic and complex issues,
Oh my
specifically like
goodness.
autoimmune diseases, people that have 20 plus symptoms, they can't function, like very similar to my story of what I was going through. And
Right.
that's something I'm really passionate about. I have heard people that are in that boat be described as medical wreckage, of they just keep getting passed around from person to person. I am that person for them. They
Okay.
are the minority in a large shift for Western medicine, but they're the majority in my practice that I'm happy to
Okay.
welcome in and to really address.
Okay. The person that, if there is an illness, they have had it or are going to have it. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
That just, what did you say? Some physical wreckage, or what was the phrase you used?
Medical wreckage. And
Medical.
I have so much anger and resentment around that phrase that even exists, that
Yeah.
people have even been called medical wreckage. Like that makes me angry right now,
Yeah.
even just thinking about that.
Yeah.
And some of that anger also drives me forward in my work. And I don't
Yeah.
ever want another human being to be medical wreckage. It's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. They're not wreckage. They're a soul and a human body, and they need some help. So let's get on it. Yes. I can just feel your determination. It's just really cool. So at any rate, so you say you started out with some of the less complex, I guess I would call it,
Yeah.
issues. And when you started, could you just tell us a little bit? You've told me about what the process is, and I could say that, but I'd much rather hear you talk about it. When your first few clients came in, what was the procedure? You said hello to them. They told you what was wrong. Could you go from there, please?
Yeah. So to establish trust in the beginning and also just give me information, I like to ask someone what their primary concern is, especially if you have 20 symptoms going on. Give me the top one. If I could be a magic fairy godmother and give you something, what would it be? We start there, and I have someone describe their case history in as much or as little detail as they want to. That there
Okay.
is nothing that is not important to me. If you think you had a weird random flare up 7 years ago on vacation and you think that's important, tell me about it. I'm going to write it down. I don't know if it is relevant or not to that symptom, but I know it's bothering you somewhere. So I take a thorough case history. I make
And
sure
let
yeah,
me stop you right there. And because there, I've heard people talk about holding space. That's a phrase that comes up a lot in this work. You're holding space for someone. And that came to my mind here because what you do with those people is you don't say, I've got 15 minutes and hurry it up. You got to talk about it and just give me the highlights. What you say is, you tell me, I'm here, let it out. Tell me what's up. And I think that's so huge because there's such a difference between wondering, when I go to a medical practitioner, I'm like, I know that their time is very limited and I want to say just what they need to hear so they can diagnose the situation I think I have, whatever. But that's not what you do. And that's not what you've ever done. You just say, tell me what you think is important. I think that's so different and wonderful. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you. So go on, please.
no, that's great. I've just never had anyone pinpoint that before, but that's a huge value system of mine, is that especially in chronic illness, most people feel like they've been run over by their medical professionals and that they're
Yes.
meaningless. And I don't want to do that.
They've been devalued
Yeah.
and you give them value. I acknowledge you've got something to say. Come on, say it. That's so wonderful. Kind.
So I go through that process with them, whatever they feel like is important. And then I sit with it for normally 2 to 5 minutes. Sometimes sooner, sometimes a little longer, but that's on average. And I just sit in prayer. God, what do you want me to know to help this person in front of me? What's relevant? What's going on with their case? I have some intellectually, I have an idea. Is this right? Am I on the right path? Is this completely in left field where this is my 10% unicorn or zebra or whatever you want to call it? Give me information that I can use to help this person. And I just write notes. And sometimes it's a specific timeline. Sometimes it's a event that I'll describe in detail. So let's say if I'll give you someone that I just did on a another interview recently.
Okay.
She described to me her TMJ pain.
All right.
And she went through her whole case history of it's been there for as long as I can remember. It really flared up when I had my wedding and my mom was around and X, Y, and Z. And she went on for a few minutes. I sat there for maybe 2 minutes with her case history. What do you want me to know? Just let information come forward of, you know what, I think this is underlying resentment that you feel like you never got guidance from your mom, that she's always felt out of control and has never given you any kind of underlying leadership. And I think it's around this specific event at your wedding that's related to your current TMJ symptoms. Let's explore that further. And we just did. We sat and we talked about that specific event with her mom just almost running around in circles, metaphorically, with her head on fire at her wedding. And she was just carrying resentment around it. And we
Yeah.
just softened it a bit to help her realize that her mom was feeling that way because she didn't have direction from her higher power. And
And
that,
let
go
me
ahead.
interrupt you. I'm sorry. I think this is a really key point, though, and that is that when you're in you're taking your moments there, right? Things come into your mind, right? I mean that. But we think of thoughts. You have a thought, but I don't think it's a thought. I think it's a knowing in a way. And when I first had that feeling, I was having my first past life regression with somebody that I knew and I really trusted. And I was really nervous about it. And we got started in it. And then all of a sudden, bam, I just knew something. It just was in my head. I knew it. And that was, I still remember it. The reason I bring it up is I still remember it so clearly to this day. It was so distinct from a thought. It wasn't a thought. It was a knowing. I knew that. And so could you expand a little bit on that process of when something comes into your mind? What's it like?
When something comes into my mind, I'm a very visual person. So it'll normally be like a scene from a movie, or it'll be a specific symbol that I have my own personal Rolodex of normally when I see this image, this is typically symbolic of what that means.
Oh, okay.
And I'm doing that entire process within 2 to 5 minutes of trying to, let's say, like a giraffe is a really common symbol for me. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean I'm seeing a literal giraffe in front of me. It's all metaphorical. It's just an image that pops in my mind. Normally when I see it,
It's shorthand
yeah,
in
it
way.
is shorthand. When I see a giraffe, it's normally this person is so stuck in their circumstances that they're not looking at the bigger picture. Because if you're a giraffe, you can see down, you can see what's going on also above and around you too. So I might see an image of a giraffe. I might write that down as not aware of current situation. And then I had 5, 6, 7 other images showing up. And then I'm merging all of those together. I might have a specific month that comes to mind in a specific year. So I'm gathering all of these details as if I'm going through a huge binder of detective work of someone's case history and trying to figure out, okay, I think it's something around this. When I give you this information, what comes to mind? And we just keep bouncing back and forth until we go, that's it. And let's confirm if that's it. When you think about that specific event or that specific thought that I just mentioned, does it bother you more than a 2 out of 10? And normally it's like a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm like, okay, we have something here that's unresolved.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I think that is so fascinating because that the way you've described it is so great. You get all these, I'll call it a download. You get all these downloads into your head and then you write down your notes, and then you converse with the person who I know myself. There have been a lot of times when I had no idea what I was feeling, what I was thinking, how I was. That's a pretty common human being condition. But that's where you're going with this person is I now know these things. I got these things from my intuition from the other side. I got these things. Now let's talk about it. And yeah, that must be something. And it must be exciting when the person that you're working with says, "Oh my God, yeah, that's a big thing." That must be an exciting moment for you.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to track it down. I typically don't go into my process of what signs and symbols are coming up because I think that can distract from the work that's being
Right,
done. Sometimes I'll
right.
have clients that I've worked with for 6 years and we have a pretty casual relationship. And I'm like, normally when I see this is what's happening. So for example, I work with some executives and some of the conversations around their stressors that come up around business deals. And I might say, typically, I know your concern right now is if this person is being deceptive and you need help determining if that's true or not. From my perspective, my symbol for deceptiveness is normally a snake. The larger the snake and the color of the snake normally determines the level of deceptiveness that's going on. So if I'm seeing a giant anaconda around your boss, I don't feel good about the situation. And then I'll go in and I'll ask God or my intuition in more depth and detail. Okay, this is the image that you're showing me. Is this what it means? Is this what it means? Let's continue to fine tune it further and further before the little kitchen timer goes ding. And I'm like, okay, let's present it to this person in a
Okay.
palatable way that they can understand that doesn't sound super woo-woo or out there. Like you don't talk about that in a corporate boardroom meeting. Well, Rachel
No,
saw a
no,
snake, so I think you're being deceptive. That's not a thing that we talked about.
no,
When you
no.
mentioned this detail in the report, I didn't perceive that you said this other detail, which was really important. Can we talk about that? It's presented in that way.
Okay. Okay. You have a mind that is at the same time in both worlds. When you're being the practitioner, you can look at your experience with business world things and your tremendous abilities in the intuitive world. And I can see where an executive would be able to relate very well to you. They'd connect with you because you are very articulate and you'd be able to say it in such a way that they could really connect with it. What a relief for them to get a look at what's going on.
Yeah. And I have found that the messenger is just as important as the message. What I tell people is with the British are coming, it would be very different if Snoop Dogg were giving that message versus traditional historical figures. Of the messenger is just as important as the message. If I present the message in a really out there kind of way, or more in a spiritual way or metaphysical way or interpretive way, some people really don't handle that well. Some people are more thinking in a black and white type context. So I really try to develop long-term relationship with my clients to understand what works for them and what doesn't work for them. Some people love Rachel's intuitive, imaginative stance. Like that's their bread and butter. Other
Yep,
people are like, I don't, just tell me what to do. And
that's
that's
right.
fine too.
That's right. Whatever you got to do, you do it, but then just tell me like in regular language.
Yes, exactly. And I'm fine with either way. No
Right.
one needs to be okay with the entire scope of everything that I do. As long as you are willing to do the work, that's all I care about.
And doing the work can be intense because you had said that when you were working with your mentor, oh, yeah, that's nice of you to mention that, but we ain't going there right
Mhm.
now. Yeah.
What I find happens is that we experience emotional stress as human beings. The emotional stress that we don't want to deal with or haven't handled yet is what gets stored in the body, from my perspective. It's not the fun emotional stress that bothers us at a 1 or a 2 out of 10. It's normally ooh, this was a really big event and I don't want to go there. I don't want to talk about that anymore. Been there, done that. And I'm like, not been there, done that. You're actually still there. It hasn't been resolved.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so cool. I don't know if this applies to your work or not, but when I was working on one of my past life regressions, practitioner told me that there are sometimes people will come along and they will find events that happened even in past lives that were so traumatic that they couldn't handle it and it just broke off. It just, in order for them to continue functioning, they couldn't handle that. So that just went off. And then then the person that was talking to me used this phrase that I still find so fascinating. And then that incident, that upset, and it waited for them outside of time for them to come back and deal with it at some point in time. Do you ever find that there are things that a part of their psyche goes away? Does that come into play with your work?
I think it can. To answer that in a simple way, I'll elaborate. I think that sometimes human beings go through unimaginable pain and suffering. I think even if that pain and suffering results in our death, I think there's still a search for a resolution in
Okay.
the afterlife for that. From a more traditional religious perspective, I like to envision that once someone passes away, that they almost go to this vacation spot and they just chill for as long
Yeah.
as need be to try to repair whatever that damage is. And I don't know how long that takes. This is my current perspective on this. I think some souls feel so damaged or so much damage has been done that they don't have any desire to return. And I don't blame them for that
Right.
whatsoever. From
Right.
a non-religious standpoint, more of a spiritual perspective, I do believe in reincarnation just based off of the experiences that I've personally had and experiences that I've heard from my clients.
Okay.
I, like me personally, something that really bothers me for no reason in this life is watching people being burnt at the stake. That's a real profound emotional experience for me. Like when you watch videos of Joan of Arc of
Right.
being burned at the stake, I have a like a strong visceral reaction to that. I don't think that's anything from this life that I can pass down. I
Right.
don't understand, which I don't know if anyone understands spirituality stuff, but I don't understand how that works or why that continues to get carried over. Why isn't that resolved in the afterlife? Whether you do believe in reincarnation or you don't, I have a lot of questions around that and I'm not quite sure. But on occasion, very rare occasion, that is a zebra where it will affect someone's health, but it's more of just an emotional stressor that's hanging out in the background. I don't find that's normally related to the physical body.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for going into that, and because I didn't know if that came to play at all. But typically, are most of the things that you work with your clients, they're mostly current life issues.
Correct. There's occasionally a few childhood things going on. That's normally not what's driving physical symptoms, though. Physical
Okay.
symptoms are normally rooted in the last 10 years, and it
Okay.
depends on everyone's case history. And then you could argue they're holding on to that stressor because of some kind of beliefs that they have that they were raised with. I think that's reasonable. And that's more of where a therapist would be great of doing that core work and that trauma work of
Okay.
why have I been holding on to this stressor? That's not typically something I do. It's mainly just like in the here and now. I think this is the problem to start addressing. Here are a few ways you can do that. Or now that you're aware of that stressor, you can take it to a counselor and start to deep dive more on why you're still holding on to this.
I think that is so wonderful that you do not claim to have every ability to help people that there is. But what you do is you're an identifier of the issues. And some of those you can work with, and some you can't. And so you just recommend that the person go to someone that has, like the psychologist, that they have training and skill in that, and they
Yeah.
can help you. Yeah. I think that's wonderful. That is motivated by caring about the client.
Yeah, I want them to have the best outcomes possible. For example, if someone is constantly like choosing work environments where they just feel abused or that they feel like they're always overgiving, like that's a pattern that can be addressed in counseling. Now,
Hmm.
if you started having thyroid issues after taking this last most recent job, I could say when your boss said, this is how you internalized it, let's
Okay.
work through this specific piece. But long term, to prevent this from continuing to disrupt your body, I think it would be helpful to address this pattern of why do you keep choosing these work environments?
That is so great. And I know that I have some people in my family that have gotten tremendous benefit from a technique called EMDR. Are you familiar with that?
Yes. And I think EMDR is great for trauma work, especially if we go to something and I can say, okay, it's a specific event. And then the client tells me that they just see black. That's
Okay.
normally a situation where I would recommend some additional trauma work of they're not ready to touch it with the 10-foot pole. There's something
Okay.
scary in that. So I might, depending on the person, I might navigate that to see try to identify what's behind it. And once I can try to figure that out without it disrupting anything in their everyday life, then go, this is something for EMDR or internal family systems or another form of trauma work that I think you would do really well with.
Okay. And you indicated earlier that at this point in your work that you receive referrals and you receive a lot of clients that have fairly complex medical conditions and difficult ones. Could you talk about that a little, please?
Yeah. So I'm starting to take on more stage 3 and stage 4 cancer cases. And that's a very involved process on my end. Typically, I want to talk to that individual at least 3 times a week at the bare minimum, if not 5
Okay.
times a week, because there's so
Okay.
much work to be done. And typically, like maybe one of those sessions every week is going over the lab work, going over like the tangibles of where is your case at? How is it progressing? Is it getting better? Walk me through your symptoms again as far as what's bothering you the most. Sometimes it's symptom management, especially if someone has bone metastases and they're just in huge amounts of pain. It's just focusing a lot of effort on that of getting them to actually be able to function on a
Right.
daily basis. And depending on where they're at in their journey, sometimes we'll start mentioning the spirituality perspective. What I
Okay.
always tell someone on the first visit with stage 3 or stage 4 cancer is I cannot guarantee to save you. Nobody can. What I can promise you, and I don't make this promise often, but what I can promise you is that I will be here in this side or on the other side to walk you through. That I will not abandon you with whatever outcome happens. That if you are not physically doing well and there's the understanding that you're not going to make it, let me help you make things right with God.
I'm sorry, what was the last thing you said? Let me help you.
Let me help you make things right with God. Let me help you
Okay.
clear your ledger.
Wow, that's pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah. Especially with stage 3, stage 4 cancer or terminal illnesses, there's so much anger with God. Why am I here? What have I done?
Wow. Wow. I just can't imagine. My wife and I started a divorce mediation business where we would just dive right into, we'd have the couple that is getting divorced. They'd sit in the same room with my wife and I. We were the mediators and we would just ask them questions and we would hel- usually very well help them out. But we weren't afraid to jump into that world where they're bringing all this hurt and emotion and things into the room with them. And that's what made this reminded me of that is that you have a personal ability to sit in the same space as somebody who has all that anger and that hurt and that just what the heck is going on? Why is this happening? I'm a good person. Why am I dying? It's wonderful that you're able to do that. They need you.
Yeah. And all of those, especially with those terminal illnesses, all of that stress of why me? What have I done? Is there anything that I can do to change this outcome? All of that is impacting the body and it's preventing, from my perspective, medications from going in and doing their full job. So what I
Oh, wow.
really like to work with people is fear and rebuilding the relationship with their higher power or God or universe, creator, whatever you want to call that. If those two things are not in place when you have severe illness, it will be a very tough road for you emotionally to continue to move forward. And I think it's really hurting your ability to heal physically.
Wow. Wow. You've been doing this then for a while to get to this place, right?
Yeah. It's been
And
a
you,
lot of practice to be able to help someone that's that severe. It's a large load to take on, which I'm happy to, and I'll be transparent with someone if I don't have that ability to, but I am immersed in their world of like you send me emails. How are you doing? What's going on? What are you stressed out about? What have you been working on with your relationship with your higher power? Keep me updated. Like I am your
wow.
new BFF for however long it takes until we can start to back you off and get you back to better health. I'm here. I am locked into you. I don't want to go away. Let me help.
What a wonderful well of kindness you are and generosity. And I'm not saying that because you were good enough to come for an interview. I'm just listening to you talk about you actively offering your help, your emotion, your being. You're actively offering that to just be there, whether you feel like it or not. They don't always contact you at a time that's, oh, good, this is a perfect moment,
Yeah.
right?
It's, I always think that it's a reciprocal relationship with someone that I work with. And I learned so much in my own journey with spirituality and any blocks I have with my relationship with God from these people that are in this situation. And I grow really close with them. I normally get to know a majority of their nuclear family, especially if they're in the hospital. Hey,
Right.
can you hold
Right.
up the phone, or Rachel's calling? Can you put her on speakerphone? I am in the room in these moments. Like I'm becoming a part of what's going on so that I can fully understand what's going on and what your pain is. And I'm happy to do that. And when someone passes away from that, I grieve with you. I'm so sad. So sad that they didn't make it.
I am so happy that you're at this point and you're in your very early 30s. And I think about what you're going to be able to do for so many people during your life. And what a wonderful thing that you do for people. And I hope that you will come back and talk with me again. I don't know how long I'm going to last in this world, but I want to continue to bring messages as long as I'm around, bring messages to people that don't know about these things like me, and just to see what's out there and what's the wonder of what love does, what love can do for all of us. And so I look forward to having more talks with you and more interviews with you. And I certainly wish you the very best, not only in your career, but in your life as well. And Rachel, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for letting me just express this. And a takeaway I want people to have is that when I was really sick, I never felt like I had someone to pour into me, that I was too much work to get back to health. And I don't feel that way for anyone that I work with. I'm happy to meet you where you're at.
We're all blessed by you doing that. And I look forward to next time.
Thank you.